From this dialogue, we learn a few things. One is that Midra genuinely sees the madness as a curse and is worried about what it could do to others. Thus, he warns you to stay away. Two is that he genuinely cares about his lady, who he calls dearest Nanaya. And third, since Midra asks for Nanaya's forgiveness when he succumbs to frenzy, I think Midra believes that Nanaya told him to endure for the sake of others, yes, but also for her. So, this maiden essentially wants Midra to suffer in righteous hardship for the one that he loves. Now, where have we heard that before?
If you are prepared to show us to take lordship through righteous hardship, words by Shabriri, your flesh and soul is kindled, and the can be spared, setting you the righteous top of the shield.
So let's discuss the theory that Nanaya told Midra to endure specifically so that the frenzy would grow. And then let's discuss the theory that she told him to do this because Nanaya is Shabriri, the being who is chaos incarnate, put on this earth to ensure that chaos has its lord. In the base game, we learn that Shabriri is a sort of skinwalker, someone who has the ability to inhabit the bodies of others. In his case, after they die, as he does with Yura, someone who is close to us. Thus, as the theory goes, perhaps Shabriri also can inhabit Nanaya's skin to encourage Midra's endurance and bring about a lord in Midra's sanctum through what Shabriri calls righteous hardship. This wouldn't be the first time that Shabriri has attempted such a thing. It wouldn't even be the second. The player character is encouraged to embrace frenzy, to spare the life of their maiden, and so was Vike, the Tarnished who came close to becoming Elden Lord. We have an entire Prepare to Cry episode on Vike's story that explains him and all the characters associated with frenzy, so check that out after this if you need a recap, but let me quickly read you one item description now that will succinctly explain Vike's story for anyone who doesn't know. The fingerprint armor states, no other Tarnished was closer to the throne of the Elden Lord than Vike, but without announcement, Vike travelled far below the capital and was scorched by the flame of frenzy. Did he make his choice for his maiden, or did some other force lure him with the suggestion? Since Shabriri advocates for us becoming Lord of Frenzied Flame in the context of saving our maiden, burning in the Fell God's flame, I'd argue that Shabriri did the same with Vike, who would have been faced with the same choice. And with Midra being yet another potential Lord of Frenzied Flame, who would also do anything for his maiden, we've established a pretty significant trend in how Shabriri might be using these three characters. In regards to Midra's character specifically, the name Nanaya could be a reference to the goddess of love from Mesopotamian folklore. It's a name that carries connotations of sensuality and charm, things that would definitely help to explain why Midra might have been so enraptured by her. And as one last piece of evidence for the theory that Nanaya might be inhabited by Shabriri, we'll take a look at the Shabriri's Royal Talisman, which was made in Shabriri's disturbing likeness. It states the corners of his mouth are upturned in an almost flirtatious manner, and I find it so perfectly creepy that Nanaya has a similar smile to Shabriri in the portrait here. It's so good. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I love this theory. I find it cool. And admittedly, the rule of cool might be affecting how strongly I advocate for this theory, so you should keep that in mind when listening to me. And on that note, I do want to say I first came across this theory in this Reddit thread, and it was through the process
made you
of
go into a thing
agreeing
like
and
that?
disagreeing
My
with
mum
multiple
was a
arguments
seamstress,
that I came to my
and that
conclusion.
sewing kit was
And my
all I
conclusion
had to
is
remember
that
by.
it's possible
I
that
always wanted
Nanaya
to be
could
just
be
like you, Mum.
but it's also possible that Nanaya isn't just her own using a similar as Shibriri. Either way, though, in my eyes, Nanaya is still a chilling, manipulative character who cursed Midra to endure her pain. But there are definitely a few ways to confirm Nanaya as a character,
I can't just grow up
I'd
and
encourage
die,
you to come to
can
your
I?
own conclusion on this as well. For example, another interpretation might be that instead of being literally Shabriri, Nanaya could instead parallel Hayata, another sort of skinwalker in the base game, who, seemingly unintentionally, occupies Arena's flesh. In her story, Hayata fulfills the role of Finger Maiden for you in the Frenzy storyline, except she's the maiden to the three fingers, not the two, and maybe Nanaya was a sort of maiden to Midra, albeit a more manipulative one. And as another alternative interpretation, I guess you could argue that Nanaya isn't an advocate for Frenzy at all, but I reckon it'd be hard to do personally. That's because the evidence of Nanaya being honest and really genuinely wanting Midra to endure for his own sake is kind of undone by the fact that when we find Nanaya's body in game, she's actually cradling someone who was a prior Lord of Frenzied Flame, albeit a feeble Lord of Frenzied Flame. Nanaya's torch is a torch made by attaching a dying flame of frenzy to a small spinal column. Now, this English description kind of makes it sound like it was a crafted item with frenzy being attached to the spine, but the Japanese description makes no such claims, and indeed, the frenzy at the tip of the spine simply reflects, I think, one who was a past Lord of Frenzied Flame, since such lords always have their spines culminate in a frenzied void. Anyway, the description goes on to read that in a distant land, in an age long past, was born a man who failed to become the Lord of Frenzied Flame. All that remains of him is cradled gently by Nanaya. This description notes that the feeble Lord of Frenzied Flame existed in a distant land and an age long past. Now, one interpretation of that is that the realm of shadow itself is that distant land in question, and that a Lord of Frenzied Flame rose here long ago, even before Midra. Alternatively, you might interpret the distant land as being distant from the lands between time, and that the evil lord's remains were carried, maybe by Nanaya. It's kind of up to you. What is clear, though, is that there were other aspiring lords of frenzy before Midra. All of them were doomed. And surely for Nanaya to cradle this feeble lord so tenderly suggests a connection between her and the lord. Therefore, I feel like Nanaya has to have some malintent with Midra, right? I mean, she's literally sitting in his chair, cradling a prior lord's feeble remains. And since Midra is worried about the frenzy spreading, I don't think he'd be too happy about her holding this torch. Not to mention, torches light the way ahead, so symbolically she's having her path ahead lit by frenzy. Now, I've seen some speculation that this spine belongs to Nanaya's child. The main arguments that I've read are that the spine is specifically defined as small and that Nanaya cradles it affectionately. But just because Nanaya cradles something doesn't mean it's definitively her child. To me, this just reveals that she has affection and perhaps pity for the subject. What's more, the spine being described as small to me is an indication that it belonged to a feeble lord, not that it's literally a child's spine. Indeed, the spine is quite large and is described as having belonged to a man. Okay, but could this have been her adult child then, who failed to become a Lord of Frenzied Flame long I mean, I guess you can't rule it out. But then some people insist that this was Midra's child, because Nanaya has her hand over her stomach in the portrait here, a pose that some believe suggests that she was pregnant at the time her portrait was taken. For this to be true, the child would have had to grow up in the sanctum and then succumb to frenzy and then fail to become a lord. But that's a lot of history for the sanctum to have had. So you'd think surely such history would have been mentioned in the lore if it had happened. So while I think these theories are compelling, I don't subscribe to them personally. I believe that Nanaya did have a history with a feeble lord long ago. But to me, since she has such clear, sinister intent in telling Midra to endure, I'm not sure that she can be this well-intentioned mother. And the idea of her being an advocate for the frenzied flame and still giving birth rubs me the wrong way as well. Because birth is kind of a sticking point for those who advocate for frenzied flame. In the base game, Hayata is euphoric at the idea of no more fracture and no more birth. So if you believe that Nanaya is aligned with frenzy, then birth probably isn't too high on her agenda. So in the end, Nanaya's character continues to pose so many questions, like where was the distant land that her torch alludes to? What age long past featured this feeble, frenzied lord? Nanaya wears spiraling clothing and hair in the style of the horn scent, but is she their brethren or is she pretending? Did she truly bring frenzy to the manse? Did she slander the sanctum and bring the Inquisition? Did she bring about the aging untouchables with the goal of creating a new, ripened lord? So many questions and so much uncertainty, and yet I'm sure that the intriguing character of Nanaya will become an enduring mystery for the lore community in years to come. And that is always fun. Before I move on, look at your walls. Would they look better with some artwork there? So right now, Displate have a deal where if you buy with the link in my description, you can get 22% off if you buy 1 or 2 Displates, or 33% off if you buy 3. I have a store full of Displate art, and the newest print is this one, Skyward Swords by Anato Stark. A print that was previously Patreon exclusive, so now it's available on Displate for the first time. Displate are these metal prints that use a magnet mounting system, and they're so easy to hang on a wall. The prints are excellent quality, and they've just been a steadfast sponsor of this channel. So if you're enjoying this video, please consider picking one up for yourself. And remember, if you buy 3, it's a bit cheaper. Regardless, thank you for listening. Let's get back to the video. On the topic of Midra's endurance, one observation I was so happy to come across was this tweet by Lil Church Law, who comments on some assets extracted by Slavsky II. These 2 accounts are great follows, by the way. Church notes that Midra wears a brooch adorned with green jewels, which in FromSoft games commonly means that it increases your stamina. So, they argue, for Midra, maybe these help in fortifying his quote-unquote endurance. In Elden Ring specifically, the jewels are Viridian Amber. And the Viridian Amber medallion plus 3 actually is found very close by in the Darklight Catacombs, so the idea that Midra might have had access to this fortifying resource is a good little theory, for sure. Anyway, let's... the end, with you pushing him over the edge, Midra finally gives into that blissful salvation, his frenzy. But it's not enough, and his ripening was all for naught. But it's no matter, for as long as order remains, it seems, chaos cannot die. And there are other prospects, like you, tarnished, exposed to the injustices of the world, who might go on to become Lord of Frenzied Flame. For unlike Midra, you are bolstered by the great roots of the Elden Ring. You are unleashing frenzy from within the Erd Tree itself. Surely that has to count for something. Though, even then, this ending might not strictly be the end. For Melina believed in the beauty of the world that you burned down, despite its flaws. So, Melina, holding fast to Torrent's whistle, promises to deliver you destined death. As Torrent burns away, his screams echoing in the distance. He was afraid for good reason. Thank you for watching.
James Hutton wrote a book in 1795, and people began to doubt the Earth was 6,000 years old. Charlie Lyle wrote a book in 1830, and people began to doubt the flood, and Charlie Darwin's book made people doubt the Creator. And by the mid-1800s, people were wondering, wow, God didn't do it. How did we get here? Who's in charge of the world?
Who's in charge of the world?
Realized that the Earth was ancient long before then. And lots of people doubted
Who's in charge of the world?
People around the world had never even heard of that flood legend to begin with. And plenty of evolutionary scientists still believe in God to this day. But it doesn't matter what anyone believes. Is it true? Can we show the truth of it? That's what matters.
That led directly to the rise of communism, Marxism, socialism, Nazism. We'll cover that on Seminar Part 5. Politically incorrect, the dangers of this evolution theory.
Remember that when this preacher says evolution, he really means all the theories that contradict the biblical narrative. So his issue is with science in general. And when he says Darwinian evolution led directly to all of these socio-political ideologies, what that really means is no, it didn't have anything to do with any of that at all. The preacher just likes to invoke Godwin's law, that the longer an argument goes on, the more likely someone will draw a comparison with Nazis or Hitler, leading to an ad hominem fallacy known as reductio ad Hitlerum, an attempt to invalidate someone's position on the basis that Hitler had the same view. That tactic often backfires, and it is often interpreted that the first one to bring up Nazis is losing the argument.
Now, Darwin didn't originate the evolution theory. It was around before him. He just simply made it popular, okay?
Other people already knew that new species had to be evolving somehow, but Darwin did the research to vindicate the first known working mechanism.
But Timothy was warned by Paul here in 1 Timothy 6. You be careful about avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science falsely so called.
If only such believers were capable of self-reflection, then the preacher would realize that the line he just cited applies to himself. Not that Paul even knew what science was. He was a mystic who thought that dreams were telepathic communication from beings not of this world, so he wasn't exactly rational.
Evolution is not science.
As I already said to this preacher in the introduction to this series, given an official declaration by the National Academy of Sciences, along with numerous other scientists and science organizations, and scientifically competent Christians, versus your uneducated anti-intellectual bias, I think I'm going to have to side with the experts who say that evolution definitely is part of science.
Evolution is a religion in every sense of the word.
Evolution is not a religion in any sense of the word, and I can prove it. But the final episode of this series is all about that, so I will save my detailed rebuttal of that nonsense until then. For now, I'll just remind you that creationists often make this false accusation, trying to create the illusion of falsification, going for the two-quote fallacy, pretending that you do it too, you're just as bad, even when we don't, and we're not.
Hitler said, let me control the textbooks, I'll control the state.
I can find no citation where Hitler ever said that. I know it wasn't in Mein Kampf. That's where Hitler explained that he was a creationist. Hitler had the same view that this preacher does. He accepted only microevolution, saying that evolution can only occur within definite limits, producing only subtle variants within their kind. He said that new diversity is limited to rare and inviable hybrids between living kinds, and he said that the emergence of new species is impossible, and that belief in macroevolution is a sin against the eternal creator. Doubtless that's why the Nazis burnt Darwin's books. But even if Hitler didn't actually say all that about controlling the textbooks, I know that the Texas State Board of Education has said something similar, and they had the same belief as his preacher.
All right, new idea. Tariffs on every single country. I know it sounds crazy, but Donald Trump was asked questions on a plane with Howard Lutnick standing behind him laughing, and Trump said, oh, you would start with all countries for tariffs.
On the tariffs that you're planning, so you're expecting to hit something like 10 to 15 countries, is that right? All of the countries across the board?
I don't know. Who told you 10 or 15 countries?
We heard that you were going to aim for the first
But you didn't hear it from me.
You would start with all countries, not just 10 to 15. Now, a couple issues with this. Number one, it probably violates World Trade Organization rules. It would undoubtedly lead to retaliatory tariffs, and it would increase prices for U.S. consumers.
After finishing last week's video about the spirit eels, I got to thinking, I never really covered the spirit jellyfish on this channel before. I've combed through so many enemies throughout Elden Ring's base game and Shadow of the Erd Tree, but I never saw the need to explore these calm spirits, as the only quest related to them is seemingly very straightforward, and there are almost no mentions of them in item descriptions, aside from a shield made from their heads. However, when thinking more deeply about what it means to be a corporeal spirit floating around the lands between, I realized that the spirit jellyfish may be a piece of the larger puzzle when it comes to what exactly death is. With that said, I'm going to break down what we know about these creatures, and dive into my theory of what their existence really means in the world of Elden Ring. I don't have a fun segue for this one. I'm just going to come right out and say you should check out the sponsor of this week's video, Quantum Marmalade, an indie sci-fi comic about mad scientists, alien creatures, and delicious cupcakes. Danny Walker is the writer and draws inspiration from stories like Dune, Scavenger's Reign, and of course, Elden Ring. Danny himself is a huge Elden Ring nerd and claims that the Frenzied Flame ending is the best ending. All hail the Lord of Chaos. Anyway, putting aside Danny's incorrect opinions, I've read Quantum Marmalade, and I love it. The Kickstarter link is in the description below, and there's even special early bird pricing for a limited number of backers. Don't miss out on this series, because it really is crafted with love. And with that said, let's talk about some jellyfish. Unless you lucked out and spoke to Ronnie before Roderico on your first run through Elden Ring, it's highly likely that the first spirit summon you'll ever have by your side is the spirit jellyfish. This helpful companion introduces you to the basics of how to pull aggro with your summon, and is a great help in our first battle against the Fell Omen. While it is rather squishy, the extra help goes a long way in teaching you how to take advantage of the summon system we've been given in this game. Mechanics aside, the description of our new friend is the first clue we have to what the spirit jellyfish truly are. A floating spirit that illuminates its surroundings. Prone to tears, the jellyfish girl searches for her distant home, will bravely spew poison at foes on her summoner's behalf. It seems her name is Aurelia. So the jellyfish, while it never speaks to us, is a girl named Aurelia, and she comes from a land far away from where Roderico found her at Moongrave. Before getting into where this home actually is, let's take a look at the jellyfish themselves as an enemy type. Much like their cousins, the spirit eels,
The jellyfish are docile when riding past them on torrent. It's rare you find jellyfish in the world already aggroed and ready to attack you. And while that may happen, they typically won't turn on you unless you strike first. These creatures seem to enjoy simply drifting through the lands between, unbothered by the flora or fauna, unless it becomes antagonistic toward one of their own. This makes it distressing to know there are some who would bring harm to them intentionally, as we know from the jellyfish shield. The head of a spirit jellyfish, commonly found floating above sacred ground throughout the lands between, wielded without modification as a shield. The see-through head is extremely light, but its flesh is supple, providing absolutely no protection from piercing attacks. We find this item when exploring the 4 belfries, left on a corpse surrounded by 4 spirit jellyfish. Apparently, they did not take kindly to the attack this man must have made on one of theirs, and he paid the price for his avarice.
It would be interesting if that item
Now,
made them
spirit jellyfish are
aggro you.
intelligent and certainly have some level of agency as they choose when to fight, not simply seeing everyone around them as an enemy. I think it's a good time to return to our friend Aurelia. Very late into our journey, as we make our way through the mountaintop of giants, we can find Aurelia's distant home in the Stargazer ruins. And when we do, there's another spirit jellyfish. But this one speaks, saying in the voice of a young girl,
Where did you go? You promised me when we turned 14. We'd go to see the stars. I've been waiting for so long. Forever and ever it seems.
if we summon our friend while standing before this jellyfish, she says,
Dear sister, if I'm here, no time to waste. Let's see the stars.
the 2 jellyfish then disappear, presumably into the sky, so they can fulfill their wish. This is a sweet ending to a story you may not have even realized you were pursuing. But if we continue to explore around these ruins, just to the northeast, we find graves. Here lie Aurelia and Arliette, who never saw the stars. These jellyfish were once human, small girls, likely astrologers, who promised each other they would one day see the stars, only to die tragically young, possibly in the war with the giants. Some claim this means all of the spirit jellyfish are children, but I think something else is going on here. We know that the jellyfish were once human, but I don't believe being a child was a prerequisite to becoming one of them. I believe the spirit jellyfish are a representation of the lack of death in the lands between. We've discussed before how death is often represented by undersea life in Elden Ring, Godwin's fishtail and scales, the spirit eels taking on the abilities of sea cucumbers, and the spirit jellyfish floating around the lands between, as if they were living in the ocean, unburdened by the gravity that holds the rest of us to the ground. Their name, spirit jellyfish, is literal. They are the spirit of a living person, unbound from their physical form, but with nowhere to go, because death does not exist in this land, and there's nothing for their spirit to do but float from place to place. Or in Arliette's case, wait for her sister, so they can finally journey to the stars. This gives us an answer to the question, what happens to those who die in the lands between, unaffected by things like grace, death flame, those who live in death, or earthly burial? It seems they become free to live eternity as they see fit. Much like the real-life jellyfish, who are all but immortal, able to regenerate themselves forever, these spirit jellyfish are untouched by death, as long as we don't put them to the sword. One thing I find interesting is that when Ronnie the Witch slew her Empyrean flesh, she needed her spirit to be bound to a doll. We've never had a good reason for why that was. Why her spirit couldn't be free to simply exist on its own. Perhaps Ronnie would not have access to her vast magical strength without a physical form. But maybe her soul needed to be bound so that it didn't twist into a jellyfish itself. A wild idea, I know, and probably not accurate, but interesting nonetheless. Much like the spirit jellyfish, Ronnie's spirit, pouring from her doll shell, is a shade of translucent blue, and while it retains its human form, it does make you wonder if there is a connection. The spirit jellyfish and their complacency to float across the land endlessly for generations stands in stark contrast to everyone else in the lands between, who, while also dealing with their own forms of stasis, seem much more pained by their situations. Everyone else is so desperate to start a fight with the first tarnish they see, going through the motions in a never-ending cycle of violence, while these essentially immortal spirits are just kind of vibing. It makes you wonder who exactly these people were before their deaths. I think the idea that all of the jellyfish are the spirits of children can be considered valid if you view them through this lens. What reason would the children of the lands between have to pursue power? They likely had no true desire for battle growing up in the Golden Age, and if they suddenly passed on for one reason or another, I think it's fair to assume that in this new form, they'd simply want to continue living in peace. Of course, I don't think that's enough to definitively say that every jellyfish is the spirit of a child, but it could make sense. Thank you for joining us while we explored the spirit jellyfish 3 years too late. What did you think of our breakdown and theory into these possibly immortal spirits? Were the jellyfish all children lost to the horrors of war in the lands between? Or are we making too big a leap because Aurelia and Arliette are the only ones given a story? Is there a connection between Ronnie's blue spirit and the blue spirit jellyfish? Do these spirit jellyfish only exist because they were never fed to the Erd-tree and were not put back into its cycle? Were the jellyfish all children lost to the horrors of war in the lands between? Or are we making too big a leap because Aurelia and Arliette are the only ones given a story? Is there a connection between Ronnie's blue spirit?
Did you guys see that for a brief moment before it was reinstated, the swarm bots that Trump and Elon have unleashed on the federal government, they took down Jackie Robinson's military career. They took down his page from defense.gov. It got subheaded DEI sports heroes in the URL. Now they've reinstated it, obviously, because it was immediately subject to a huge amount of blowback. You mean the military career that exposed him to a life free of segregation? The tough thing about this, and the important thing to remember, is that you can't let conservatives control these words. Jackie Robinson was DEI. It was the Jim Crow era. His participation in the military and in sports were part of initiatives to diversify those fields. And then he ended up being the baseball guy. He ended up being John Baseball. Jackie Robinson. I mean, it's like an American hero, you know. But you take DEI and you make it
Exclusively like a slur, you make it the N-word, which is what they use it to be, obviously. But you have to remember, hold on a second, I'm thinking right now, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. Wait a second, those are good things. Oh, hold on. I'm returning back to my base principles. I'm realizing, well, actually, those are actually really good things. In an era of discrimination against Jackie Robinson for reasons, unknown to me, the deliberate allowance and the participation of him in baseball or in the military, I mean, these are DEI, but not the same version of DEI conservatives use, right? Because they just mean the N-word. It did get reinstated, of course, because this is just too... Do you think they're just going to start saying the N-word, though? Why would they say the N-word when they could just say DEI? Like, unironically, do you have any idea how often you can see conservatives say stuff like, oh, he's got a DEI wife. Oh, that's a DEI actress. Like, come on. They did this for years with woke, too. It's just the N-word. They've been doing this with a bunch of famous figures at the Pentagon specifically. The Department of Defense has removed a bunch of, essentially like all non-white people from their like notable figures records. I think they've reinstated some of them. Yeah, we know what happened with the Tuskegee Airmen. We know what happened with the Navajo Code Breakers. And they brought them back, but only because there's been backlash. We're going to lose a lot of history during this administration. Yep, remember they've tried to erase trans people from Stonewall. They literally like copy paste, just like control, find, control delete.
They're trying to, yeah, the gay pride, Enola Gay, very funny shit like that. These record erasures are being done by absolute Hitlerites. You know, they're walking back on it because other people are going to check their work. You know, there's blowback. They're running back. They're like, okay, hold on. You know, but they haven't done it with trans people at Stonewall, have they? They'll get away with what they can. Their initial statement when the erasures happened are pure Klansmanship. When asked about the reason for the removal of the story on the Department of Defense website about Jackie Robinson's military service, Pentagon Press Secretary John Ulyett said the following in a statement to ESPN. As Secretary Hegseth has said, DEI is dead for the Defense Department. Discriminatory equity ideology is a form of woke cultural Marxism that has been just zero IQ conservative buzzwords, literally no thought. Dumb speak. There is no place in our military. It divides the force, erodes unit cohesion, and interferes with the service's core warfighting mission. We are pleased by the rapid compliance across the department with the directive removing DEI content from all platforms. In the rare cases that content is removed, either deliberately or by mistake, that is out of the clearly outlined scope of the directive, we instruct the components and they correct the content accordingly. Phenomenal stuff. The Pentagon Press Secretary. Jesus, man. Yeah. I don't know. It's grim. What does cultural Marxism even mean? It means charitably nothing and uncharitably Jews. Pretty much it. It's a Nazi theory that's been like reappropriated for modern day use. It used to be cultural Bolshevism, which just meant like when the Jews do communism or something. They really will take everything from us if they can. Do you have any idea how insanely Hitlerite you have to be to remove an article on Jackie Robinson's military service? Jackie Robinson is like an all-time American hero. He's like as American as apple pie. The story of Jackie Robinson is, participation in the military, his sports career. This is like, it's not just American, it's Americana. He's like, he's entered into history like larger than life. You know, I don't believe they reinstated the mention of trans people in the Stonewall pages. Okay. He's so big, people like me who don't know sports know about it. Yeah. And the funny thing is, too, like, if anything, you would think that the MAGA ideology would be touting him insincerely as an example of the problems with DEI. They would say, well, actually, segregation was a kind of DEI itself, just against black people. Jackie Robinson, by breaking that segregation, showed the value of genuine meritocratic equality. Not only letting him play because he's black or whatever, but by allowing him to play in spite of being black. You get it. This is like the kind of thing they would say. And then, like, that's why he was so great. because he wasn't being put in this position exclusively by being black. Like, you could so easily twist his history to serve their narrative, but they're so racist that they don't.
Well, that would just be admitting to.
I don't know. At least it's getting pushed back for now. Thank you for your channel and all your hard work. I always appreciate your input. Thank you. Yeah, no, I've been feeling a strong sense of community from the community lately, which is good. You know, I know that in these difficult times, a lot of people are checking out, and I advise against it so strongly. It's so important for us that you have to be involved. I'm not saying, by the way, like be involved in the capacity of donating to me, though obviously that's the most important thing you can be doing. But what I mean is like it's people want to recede. And it's so important that we don't, because that's a component of the obeying in advance, you know? You're existing here, you're being alive as a dissident to this administration is a win for us. You know, your participation is meaningful. Every errant comment made it work. Every interaction with a barista where you both clearly are aware of what's going on and you oppose it. Every tiny little interaction, they add up cumulatively. That's why whenever I engage with a service worker, I make anti-Trump comments. Or at the very least, if given the opportunity, I'll reference like what's going on. I talk to a doctor, I talk to a barista, whatever, because they see, what do they see in me? They see a white guy. I've got a beard, you know. I'm in Seattle, so I'm probably left leaning, but whatever. But like in them, if people stop engaging with them in that way, they'll stop engaging with people in that way. You know what I mean? When other people get quiet, they'll get quiet too, and the world gets quiet for all of us. And that's how that shit happens, man. That's how it happens for everyone. You can't, if you give in early, if you obey in advance, if you let yourself recede and wither and wilt culturally so that, you know, the opposition is they're the only ones who are allowed, you let a vocal minority dominate your country. You know? Gotta be aggressive.
This is Job. He's very loyal to God. He's well respected and he has a pretty good life with a lovely wife, 7 sons, 3 daughters, and plenty of material possessions, including 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 donkeys, and many servants. All that is about to change.
Satan! Beelzebub ding dong! Long time no see. Where the hell you been, Joe?
I thought you were on a mission.
Just been wandering around the earth. Chilling. So, did you by any chance notice my homeboy, Job?
God.
He's one of my all-time favorites. The dude fears me and shuns you. Yeah, he's cool with you, sure. But that's just because me and him are right. School of life. He'll become a hater. Care to,
God.
Sure.
Lucy, don't stoop to his level.
Okay. Do whatever you want to his stuff, but just don't hurt him. Deal? Deal.
Okay, this has gotten way out of hand.
Idle, Tim?
People are dying over this stupid bet.
Shut the hell up, Jeffrey. I'm trying to see what you got. Yeah, I got a lot of money riding on this.
Lord, you gavest unto me everything, so you may take it all back if thou wishes. All my years of hard work surely did nothing to amass my fortune. No, it was all you. You gave it unto me, those animals and servants who were slaughtered. And my 10 children, they existed surely not because I repeatedly impregnated my wife by way of sexual intercourse. No, but because you, an invisible, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient, spaceless, timeless, unclassed, transcendent, absolute, perfect, benevolent deity gave them unto me. So I have no problem with you taking them back. Camel Mart has a similar return policy, so why should not the Lord?
Okay, God, you won. It's over. Man, you are sadistic.
Satan, Lucy, where you been? Same old, chillin'.
Why do you keep asking? You know everything, and she knows you know, and you know she knows that you know.
And how about that Joe, Lucy? Fucked his shit up and he's still my homie, yo. Yeah, but that was just his family and possessions. Fuck him up. And he won't be your homie anymore.
Don't either of you think it's a bit wrong to be gambling with people's lives?
Deal. Double or nothing.
Guess not. Like, OMG, thou still haven't heard God yet? Thou art gross. Just die already.
But God did it on a very good thing. Like you, sweetie. And I accepted
Girls
So,
spanking.
if he desires to give unto me bad things, like masturbation, I should accept those too.
Thou needs, because a shower is what thou needs to do.
Oh, God, that's nasty. That's really, really nasty.
I think
You
that's
should have that looked at.
You should clean that off. That's pus.
I wish I was never born.
Thou art being a bit of a pussy, Job. Yep, good people don't suffer. Thou art jacked because thou probably did some bad shit. And this is thy punishment?
Yeah.
That's why God killed thy children. I mean, if I died right now, I'd be like, oh snap, my dad needs to stop jerking off. Or whatever it was he did to piss God off.
Thou needs to cease thy jerking off.
Yeah, if only he knew the real reason was for a bet. Some benevolent yarn you
Oh,
are.
I know.
Some friend you are is sucketh. Thou hast not a clue. Thou art wrong about me. I wish I'd just die already.
What's happening to me is justice. Justice? No. But that was the devil? Yes.
And your children are dead because they were probably rotten sinners too.
Oh.
But I swear, I didn't do anything wrong.
Oh, sure. I wish God would come down right now and prove me wrong. Indeed. So would I, actually. I'd love to see that. You could tell him all about your bet.
Whatever.
God is mysterious. Thou can't possibly understand it, his reason, which I'm sure are really deep and far beyond thy comprehension. Indeed. I mean, it's not like he's doing this to win a bet or something. Just admit thy wrongdoing, and he'll ease off.
Thou art a fucking know-it-all. Please, God, just let me know what I did wrong.
But he didn't do anything wrong, did he?
Wicked people suffer, and thou art suffering. So do the math, bitch.
Yeah,
You said it, brother.
Oh my God, that's it. You made me feel so much better now. Not. Man, I'd never say such shit unto thee. Dear God, my life is truly foobar before thee. And though thou hast fucked me and my family up so very thoroughly, I know thou art my advocate in heaven. Thou art my witness who knows my innocence.
This guy over here with the speeches, I guess we're just retards before thee.
Indeed.
It doesn't take a chariot scientist to figure this shit out.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
You got to be wicked or this wouldn't have happened to thee.
Yeah, booyah. Look, for some reason, I don't know why, God is pissed at me. And I don't need thy tools kicking me whilst I'm down.
God curses wicked people.
I heard that.
Just like done one, we all know.
Bullshit. Evil people enjoy success.
Well, surely God isn't punishing thee because of thy piety.
Actually, if you think about it, his piety is exactly why he's being punished.
Stop lying and trying to make it look like God made a mistake. Submit to God, and he will return thy bling to thee.
If only I could just see God and talk to him.
Oh, please.
I'd find out what his problem with me is and show him that I'm not so bad after all. But unfortunately,
The motherfucker's invisible.
That's just fucking nonsense, and you know it.
Thou art not righteous to God.
Nope.
Thou art like a maggot compared to God.
Yeah? Well, Job never made a bet with someone's life.
Oh, that helps, Billy. Thanks. I maintain that I am righteous.
What a crock of shit.
Man, I miss the old days when I was like a goddamn rock star.
Oh, don't give me that shit.
People loved me. And now they spit in my fucking face.
Oh, poor baby.
Please, God, I cry out to thee. I suffer so very much.
Hey, you're going away from the camera, guy? Sham, in the kitchen. Get back to the car. Your spouse.
I swear I've been innocent. If I haven't, God himself step forward with the accusation.
You know, he's gonna be really pissed off when he finds out this was all over a bet.
Yeah. Better keep that one on the down low.
Okay. Now hold on. It's going on long enough. I may be young, but I ain't dumb, you dig? Job, God obviously found some fault with thee.
Look at them all. Fucking clueless.
God has probably already answered thee, like in a dream or some shit, and thou just ain't listening. God don't do evil. There's no way he did this to thee unjustly. Thou art answering like a guilty man. Thou art rebelling against God. Cry out to him all thou wants, but God don't answer arrogant little sinners like me.
Oh, yes, I do.
Holy fuck.
Alright, I'm bored of this shit. Joe, God already said his boss was about to interrogate that shit on you. And you best answer him straight, boy. Where were you when I laid the earth's foundation? Who did all the measuring and stonework?
I don't know.
I did. Who made the goddamn sea? Me. Do you command the sun? No. I did. Where does the lightning and wind go? Can you bring out the stars? Do you know heaven's laws? Who makes thunderstorms? Me. Who makes ice? Me. Who provides for the animals? Me. Who gave them their gifts? Me. King Kong ain't got shit on me.
I'm not worthy.
Stop being a little bitch. Answer me. Are you glorious and splendid like me? How dare you insist that I owe you an explanation for this?
What an asshole.
I am sorry. Thou art truly a badass God. I hate
Thou art truly a badass god.
Now that's what I want to hear. Fear and submission. Me like me. Vince, what did he win?
Hey, you're gonna love it, Job. You got double your merchandise back. You're gonna get your 14,000 sheep, your 6,000
You don't
camels,
actually
your
get
1,000
these
yoke
those.
of oxen, and your 1,000 donkeys. Oh, I repent. But wait, there's more. You going away
14
with camera
decks.
guy? Now, because you repented within the last 30 seconds, you're gonna get your 7 brand new sons, and you're gonna get your 3 daughters that are even hotter than the ones you used to have.
Wow, that's great, God. I really appreciate it. But I miss my children who died. Couldn't you?
Don't push it, Job.
Hi, Job.
Aha! I knew a mediator would fly down from heaven and defend me.
That's right. Look, Job, God is about to show up and scare you into submission by bragging with some bullshit about how badass he is. But it's actually all an act to cover up the fact that this was done to you so that he could win a bet with the devil.
Thou art gotta be shitting me.
No, thou art aren't shitting you.
My children are dead. Hundreds of my servants dead.
Rage
Been
going on
day
in the
and night,
back of
and
the
people
movie
think I'm a
theater.
monster. All for a bet?
Yep. So here's what we're gonna do. I say we play a little prank on God. You in?
Oh yeah, I'm so in.
Okay, brace yourself. I'm gonna take you into the future. All the way to the 21st century.
Wow. What shall we do there?
I'm gonna take you to John F. Kennedy Elementary School for some classes.
Well, what do you want to rate your foundation? Who did all the measuring? Snow or
Actually, 4.54 billion years ago, the Earth formed by a friction with the solar nebula. The gravitational attraction of gases which had eventually coalesced with the Earth.
well, who made the goddamn sea and tells it what to do?
Well, around 4 billion years ago, the Earth's core was also turned out gases and comets apart, and the solar system was still quite young and full of debris. As the planet served as cooled water condensed at a rate until the lower terrain hit the ocean. Minerals like salt entered the ocean through runoff and exited the ocean through tectonic activity and evaporation.
Lightning.
Electrons within a cloud repeatedly stream and pull, branching and splitting into a step leader. As its altitude lowers, it pulls on the ground. As the surplus of negative energy gets within, say, 10 to 100 meters of the ground, streamers or weakly luminous plasma filaments are launched toward the step leader from any ground-based object. And when the connection closes the circuit and causes the lightning bolt to form, a 10,000 ampere current will flow.
Just shut the fuck up already. Jeffrey, you had something to do with this, didn't you?
Bad guy! Bad. Now you heal. Now you do the right thing and you heal Job right now.
Fine. Happy now?
No. You should resurrect his children too.
Resurrect? Sorry, but no can do. Dead is dead.
Oh, like you never resurrect one of your own kids?
No, of course I wouldn't.
Would two?
Would not.
Two?
Not.
Wanna bet on it?
You're damn right I do.
Okay, fine. Winner gets to be God, loser goes to hell.
Deal.
Unusual to this eight. Have a safe.
We interrupt your regularly scheduled program with breaking news of a truly unprecedented event, as God currently heads to the courthouse where he will defend himself against 40,327,120 felony charges, including genocide, war crimes, tax evasion, a stack of parking tickets, and okay, I'm being informed that since God is omnipresent, he is actually already in the courtroom. We go there now.
Now look at here, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you, yep.
Your Honor, I call to the stand, God.
Oh, Jackson, Your Honor, this is outrageous. I call for a mistrial.
Say on what grounds, Counselor?
Well, on account of my client not being a human being, and therefore not subject to our laws.
Weren't human beings supposedly made in his image?
Well, I suppose, but
Your Honor, that not only should the creator of the law be subject to the law, but should also be the quintessential example to follow.
Fine, it's okay. This ain't my first trial.
oh, look at here, God Almighty. Would you mind, please, speaking away from the microphone? It's difficult to understand you with that there echo.
I said this ain't my first trial.
Speaking of your first trial, while it is true that you did not explicitly kill your son Jesus, is it not true that you sent him to be killed?
Well, yeah, but I did that to save you, genius. And not only you, but everyone in this room. And not only everyone in this room, but everyone in the world. Ungrateful douche nozzle.
Interesting. Save us from who? Exactly. Sorry, I didn't quite catch that.
Fifth Amendment, okay?
I see. Well, isn't it also true that indeed not I, nor everyone in this room, nor everyone in the world, as you said, will be saved unless they pledge loyalty to you? And in fact, you even indicate in your Bible that most people will not be saved?
Oh, Jackson, Your Honor, this trial isn't about saving people, it's about murdering people.
Exactly. And I brought Jesus back to life, which is basically reverse murder, so I should get at least one free murder.
Oh, now look at here, God, Lord, Your Highness. The law doesn't really work that way.
It does now.
Isn't it true, God, that you personally made King David's firstborn son a little child suffer for an entire week while his father begged you for his son's life, only for you to finally kill his son in order to punish David?
Okay, free murder. I'm using my free murder card now.
That's right, Judge. He gets one free murder according to the Constitution.
Don't be ridiculous. There's no such thing as a free murder card.
Now look at here, prosecutor. It's laminated.
It's laminated.
Okay, but it doesn't really matter, does it, Yahweh? Because there's countless other examples. Isn't it true, for instance, that when Aaron's sons worshipped you,
They made an innocent technical error with their offering, so you burned them both to death.
They burned the wrong kind of incense and had the whole tent smelling like a bath and body works.
Your Honor, a clear case of self-defense. If ever there was one.
True, Israel was a stand-yourself state at that time. Now look at how my hands are tied, prosecutor. We can't simply apply our modern standard of morality to an ancient culture. That would be called a presentism.
Isn't it true, God, that you are beyond time and unchanging, and therefore presentism would not really apply to you?
I plead the 29th Amendment.
What are you talking about? There is no 29th Amendment.
There is now.
That just says 2 free murders. What does that even mean?
Obviously, it means he gets 2 free murders.
I don't know where you went to law school, prosecutor, or what sham of a bar exam you passed. But when I attended Willie's Law and Beat the Tackle back in the 1930s, they taught us how to read.
Son, I already knew how to read before I went to law school, Judge.
Look at here, you sassing me, boy?
He's sassing you, Judge.
No, look, Yahweh, here is a list of Bible verses in which you personally killed people. Now, these amount to millions of people. For instance, not only did you kill David's firstborn son, but all the firstborn sons of an entire country. Hell, at one point, save for one family, you even killed literally everyone on Earth, including babies and all the plants and animals on the planet except for whatever fit on Noah's Ark.
Objection, Your Honor. Those were very obviously
Evil babies and evil plans.
Ah, yes, that's right. They were all evil, you say. Tell me, Yahweh, what did the typical baby born back then do that was so evil?
They were going to be evil. Trust me.
I see. So, did your solution work?
What do you mean?
I mean, did you stop evil? Does evil no longer exist today?
Well, no. I mean, yeah, evil exists, but...
So, your solution wasn't really a solution after all, was it?
Well, no, but...
Then why do it? I mean, did you know that there would be people after your flood who would be evil?
Well, yeah, but they have Jesus now, so they don't need to die.
So, Jesus was the solution?
Yeah.
Then why not start with Jesus rather than a huge flood that drowned children and animals and killed all the plants? If you're omniscient, you already knew the solution. So why not do that first?
Look, I promised not to do it again. What more do you want from me?
That's right, Your Honor. He promised to never do it again.
Well, that is true, prosecutor. If the defendant were on world flooding probation, the court would find his behavior exemplary. Your Honor.
That's the bar now. Just don't kill everyone, everything on Earth, and you're not guilty of murder.
Oh, I'm still gonna kill a shitload of people. I'm just not gonna do it with a flood.
Your Honor, let the record show that the defendant plans to kill a shitload of people.
Look, you little pipsqueak, I created everyone, so you all belong to me. I can do whatever I want. I brought you into this world, and I can kick you out of it.
There it is. You don't respect us as independent, sentient beings. You own us. We're your slaves. Tell me, Yahweh,
Is a parent allowed to kill their child just because they created their child?
Objection, Your Honor. This trial has nothing to do with a parent killing their children.
Oh, doesn't it? Aren't we all called God's children? Isn't God called our Father? Why does this analogy suddenly break down when he starts killing us? What kind of father murders his children? How is that leading by example, Yahweh?
Your Honor, this here's a witch hunt.
Literal witch hunts were done in the defendant's name.
Well, those were real witches.
No, they weren't.
Your Honor, I called to the stand one of the witches from back then.
Bailiff, look at here. I'll go and dig up one of these alleged witches.
Isn't it true that you were a witch?
Oh, looks like she's taking the Fifth Amendment. You know what that means? Guilty.
You yourself pled the Fifth Amendment today.
Whatever. Look at here, Counselor. Could you please have your client bring the witness back to life so that she may answer questions? Fine. But that means I get another murder.
Isn't it true that you were a witch? Objection, Your Honor.
You're the one asking the question, Counselor. Your Honor, I call Your Honor to the stand. Me? Yeah, you.
Objection, Your Honor. The defendant is not allowed to sit on the bench during his own trial.
Well, technically, God is a judge, so I'm gonna have to allow it, prosecutor. Go ahead and ask your questions, prosecutor.
Ask the judge questions? That doesn't even make any sense. What is happening right now?
Oh, well, if you have no further questions.
No, wait. Okay. Your Honor, does your position as a judge give you the right to break the laws you preside over? To do things like commit murder, war crimes, command people to take slaves, etc.?
Hell no, of course not. I'm not above the law, prosecutor.
Interesting. Not above the law. Would you then agree, Judge, that being in a privileged position as you are would make taking advantage of said position to commit said crimes violate the trust of the people, undermine our justice system, and therefore be a particularly egregious example of those crimes?
Well, look at here, I suppose it would indeed be very serious for a man of my position to commit such crimes and use my position of power to influence the outcome.
Interesting. So the more power you have, the more responsibility you have, correct?
Well, sure, I would say so.
So would we expect, for example, a perfectly good person in a position of great authority to behave like, say, a bloodthirsty ancient war tribe?
Well, no, of course not.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Counselor, do you have any questions? Only one. Judge, do you find you guilty? No, I find me not guilty.
Oh, come on! Your Honor, I demand that the defendant recuse himself as judge.
May I inquire as to your grounds for such a serious request, prosecutor?
Clearly, there's a conflict of interest in serving as his own judge.
Judge, do you have permission to recuse yourself? No, I do not. Well, there you have it, prosecutor. I call to the stand the prosecutor.
What? What for? This is outrageous.
Your Honors, I suggest that we hold the prosecutor in contempt for that outburst.
Fine. I'll take the stand.
Isn't it true, prosecutor, that when you were 15 years old, you imagined having sexual intercourse with your older sister's best friend?
felony charges.
Your Honor, permission to treat the prosecutor as a hostile witness. Permission granted. Answer the question.
Yes! Okay, yes, I did.
Your Honor, I would like to change my client's plea to guilty.
Wait, you're representing me now?
I do hereby find the prosecutor guilty of being a pervert.
Oh, but that's not even a crime.
It is now.
But this is your trial.
Oh, right. Thanks for reminding me. Judge, do you have a ruling? I do. Of the 40,327,120 felony charges, I do hereby find me not guilty.
But you can't find yourself not guilty. This is a jury trial. It's up to the jury.
Is it? Your Honor, do you have a time scheduled for the prosecutor's sentencing hearing? Oh, no time like the present. Prosecutor, I do hereby sentence you to serve no less than an eternity of torture in the pits of hell. However, I will commute your sentence to time served and give you unlimited free rapes and murders with no time in hell if you pledge loyalty to me.
Okay. I pledge loyalty to you, Lord.
I just have one more question for you, Your Honor. By all means, who invented morality?
This place is too strong anyway. just gonna leave it. Try to.
If painting is proof there was a painter, even if you never see the guy. A building is proof there was a builder, and a watch is proof there was a watchmaker, and design, the creation, is proof there was a creator.
The preacher is here demonstrating a fallacy of presupposition by referring to reality as creation. His evidence of creation is only his circular assumption that everything was created and that creation requires a creator. But if we call it reality instead, then reality doesn't require a realtor.
See, design simply demands a designer. Period.
No, it really doesn't. The conceptual conflict between those who accept or reject the science is that religious fundamentalists think everything is being orchestrated from the top down by order of nature's strange authority, willing reality to be however he commands, and literally wishing things into being. There is no evidence for this alleged administrator, and no mechanism has ever been shown for how it could know anything or do anything. Evolution, and evidently the rest of reality too, is exactly the opposite of that. And biodiversity is an inevitable product of population genetics amid environmental dynamics, working from the bottom up, producing an emergent pattern from many components that are themselves unaware of their own participation or the product they're producing. But the mechanisms are known and confirmed to work without any planning or desire toward any goal. Everything that exists has properties. Whatever those properties are, determine the conditions of the system, which in turn establish evolution as an incidental algorithm that works automatically, continuously. It's the inescapable result of populations in which there is an increasing variety to be imperfect reproduction, also known as mutation, wherein every individual of every generation in every increasingly divergent lineage varies from all others in some small way. Among all these varieties, some alterations won't work very well, will usually be eliminated pretty quickly, but a few will improve function, and those will be favored for the next generation and the next set of varieties tested against it. Several generations of that become deterministic, albeit unwittingly, resulting in improved designs throughout the organism and population without any conscious thought or deliberate intent. The biodiversity is the inevitable product of population genetics amid environmental dynamics, producing designs of staggering complexity and even accidentally exceeding the capacity of intelligent designers.
Invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen. They are without excuse. The Bible says there's no excuse.
Whoever wrote Romans 1:20 was without understanding, either scientific or philosophical, because it is a description of the question-begging fallacy, which is ubiquitous throughout religion. It's a circular argument routing back to the assumed truth, what the Bible describes faith to be, looking at things that are hoped for but not seen, because faith is blind by definition, and not seeing what can be seen, and we are blessed if we can instead convince ourselves of what is not really there. The believers use circular arguments like that the Bible is true because the Bible said so, or we believe in creation because we are creationists, because we believe everything was created. I heard the most memorable demonstration of that mindset when someone in one of my own blood relatives, all of whom are religious, said this to me. I believe what I believe because that's what I believe. I believe that. And I'm not going to believe what you believe because it's not what I believe. To my experience, there is no way to get someone like that to understand that the claim is not evidence of itself, that at some point there should be a reason. It is not the claim itself, nor the mere assumption of the claim either, which believers also cite as evidence, the fact that they believe it. But just because you believe something doesn't make it true, not even if you're completely convinced. Oh, I don't believe there's a God. I know there is. No, you don't. How many times have you been sure about something only to realize that you remembered it incorrectly or found out that you were misled by an unreliable source? If you can't validate your claim to any degree at all, by any means whatsoever, then you don't actually know, but you merely believe. But such belief is stoic, unreasonable, assumed without reason, and defended against all reason. These beliefs are often established by subjective impression or by an authority proclamation rather than being dependent on a tentative and thus correctable understanding of the facts and evidence.
The psalmist said, when I consider the heavens, God knows that the study of science will draw us to him. Satan knows that too. So Satan has worked really hard in the field of science to make sure it pushes kids away from God.
baseless speculation, but they just call it out as if it's real, as if you could prove it. And believers of every faith admit that they can't show and thus don't know really whether any gods or devils exist. Yet, every religion thinks that they know all of these specific details about both of these things, including what their God knows or thinks or likes or hates. Have you noticed that every believer's personal God always agrees with that believer on every topic? And somehow God always shares every believer's opinion, even when it goes against the opposite opinion that God also shares with other believers from every other denomination. Funny how that works. Every denomination of every religion believes they're the chosen ones, that they're the one true faith, and that everyone else in the world will learn the error of their ways at some moment of final judgment. They all say theirs is the absolute truth, even when they contradict each other, and obviously none of them really knows any such thing. For example, there is no Satan. Even if there really was a God, and even if it was the Christian God, there still wouldn't be a Satan. The devil character is evidently a human invention, made of a combination of misunderstood scriptures and adapted mythologies of non-Abrahamic religions integrated with some heavily embellished folklore. It's obviously false, completely, made up, with no basis in fact at all, not even a kernel of truth, not at all real. And even if there really was a God, and even if it was the Christian God, there still wouldn't be a Satan or a hell either. Evolution would still be an inescapable fact of population genetics, fossils, and phylogeny. The Bible would still be wrong about most things, and creationism would still be wrong about everything, or everything but that one thing. And not even the existence of God would change any of that.
And we need some good godly science teachers to get involved in the school system and turn this thing around.
Now the preacher wants to get what he calls good godly science teachers into the schools, not to teach science, but to subvert and undermine science in both principle and practice, to misrepresent evolution, to thwart analysis and understanding, to stifle curiosity and stunt critical thinking in order to indoctrinate the faith, violating the First Amendment by preaching unsupported and thus indefensible religious assertions to sequestered students. That, more than anything else, is why I do what I do, because I think students have a right to be told the truth rather than being misled by misrepresented, deliberately deceptive, politicized propaganda and pseudoscience nonsense, such as the preacher has been preaching all throughout this seminar.
And by the way, we can prove the
That way
existence
too
of God
smaller.
by the impossibility of the contrary. It's impossible that there not be a designer. It's just not possible. There had.